Okay class, so today we're going to learn about something very important, something that we're going to use every day in our lives. But before we begin, I'm going to need us to all get into learning position. So I need all my friends to come sit down on the carpet, and I need everyone to sit in crisscross position, sit straight up and have your eyes on me. Perfect. So who knows what this is? And remember, raise your hand if you want to answer a question quietly and I'll call on you. Jonathan, what is this? Perfect, you're exactly right, it's a clock. And who knows, why do we use clocks? Do we use them to see what temperature it is outside? No. Do we use them to check what day it is? No. Who can raise their hand quietly and tell me why we use clocks? What do they tell us? Rebecca. You're exactly right. They tell us the time. And we need to know the time because we need to know when we need to do certain things, like when we need to wake up, or when we need to go to sleep, or when we need to eat meals like breakfast, dinner, and lunch. So, analog clock, because it has these hands, and the hands are things that move around the clock in a circular motion, like this, and there are actually two of them. But we're just going to look at one at a time. So the hour hand is the shorter hand. The hour hand tells us what hour it is. Wherever the hour hand is pointing is the hour that it is. So now, who can tell me what hour it is? Lily. You're exactly right, it's 8 o'clock. And why is it 8 o'clock? Matthew. Right, because the arrow is pointing at the 8. You're exactly right. Let's try a harder one. Okay, so who can tell me what's different about this one than before? Before, the arrow was pointing straight at a number, but now what's it doing? Emily. Right, it's in between. Does everyone see that, how it's in between two numbers? So what hour do we think it is? Great, so I heard some 4s and some 5s, and this one's a little harder since it's in the middle. The way that we handle this is if the arrow is pointing in the middle of two numbers, it's the lower number that we call the hour, because the arrow has not reached the 5 yet. In order for it to be 5 o'clock, the arrow has to reach the 5 or be in between 5 and 6. So right now, the hour is 4, because it's in between 4 and 5. Let's see if we understand that concept. Okay, so who can raise their hand quietly and tell me, what hour is it now? Catherine. Right, you're exactly right. It's 9 o'clock because the arrow is in between 9 and 10. Okay, so now that we've learned about hours, we're going to learn about minutes, because sometimes we need to be a little more specific. For example, if I need to go to bed at 12:30, that means that I need to go to bed at the hour 12, and it needs to be 30 minutes after that hour. But I need to be able to read the clock to tell me that, right? So the minute hand is the longer hand. And the longer hand, we look at the numbers on the outside. Now these numbers are not really on the clock. We're just looking at them right now to help us. Okay, Lily, do you want to count with me? Let's see how many marks there are in between the 12 and the 1. Count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it took 5 marks to get between these two numbers. Carl, will you count with me between 1 and 2 out loud? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exactly. So what do you notice? There are 5 marks between both of these numbers, right? And that's the way that it works all the way around the clock. So let's count by 5s, everyone. Let's count all together. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. And once we get around to 60, then we start again. When the minute arrow is pointing at a number, we need to look how many of the small marks have been made around the circle, and that's going to tell us how many minutes it's been. So Jennifer, can you tell me, the arrow's pointing at the 8. How many minutes does that mean it's been? Right, you're exactly right. It's been 40 minutes. And why has it been 40 minutes? Because we're pointing at the 8, and we had to count by 5s to get all around to the 8. Let's try a different number of minutes. Which one of my friends wants to tell me how many minutes have passed? Jacob. You're exactly right. 20 minutes have passed because we're pointing at the 4, and if we start from the 12 and we count 5, 10, 15, 20, it's been 20 minutes. Let's try one more. This one's a little trickier. Remember when we did the arrow and we did it in between two numbers? We can also put the minute arrow in between two numbers. So now we have to look exactly which point the arrow is pointing at. We start with 12 and we look around and we see it got to 8. So like we talked about before, if it gets past 8, that's 40 minutes. But let's count how many past 40 it is. Let's count together. 40, 41, 42. So that means that it's been 42 minutes. Now, let's combine them. Let's look at the minute and the hour hand together. Okay, I'm going to write down a time, and I want someone to raise their hand and tell me what time it is. So first, which one of my friends can tell me the hour that it is? Jennifer? Right, it's 2, because the red hand, which is the hour hand, and the smaller one is pointing at the 2. And how many minutes have gone by? Daniel? You are so right. 30 minutes have gone by. The blue arrow, which is the minute hand, is pointing at the 6, and the 6 means that 30 minutes have passed. So if we put those together, we can say that it is 2:30. Okay, friends, let's look at one more time. Okay, can someone tell me if I'm right or not? Is the hour 3? Katie, is the hour 3 right now? No, it's not. Why is it not 3? Because which hand is this? This is the minute hand, right? And the minute hand doesn't tell us the hour, it tells us the number of minutes. The hour hand is the red one. So what hour is it actually, Katie? 8, you're exactly right. It is 8 o'clock. But we have to look at the minute hand also to see all of what time it is. So who can tell me? The blue arrow, which is the minute hand, is pointing at the 3, and the 3 means that how many minutes have passed? Right, 15. So what time is it? Who can tell me what time it is? Matthew. Right, it's 8:15. So everyone, we just did our first lesson in telling time, and you should all give yourselves a big pat on the back because that was great, and you all answered my questions perfectly. We learned about the hour hand, the minute hand, and the analog clock, and why we use it.